Welcome everyone to this webinar, which is a live demo of QInsights, but also with the title of What if Qualitative Analysis Felt More Like Brainstorming? So I start with a PowerPoint presentation, but of course we move live to QInsights as well. But I first want to introduce the basic ideas behind QInsights, then we go to the live demo, and then in the end we talk a bit of how you could access and workshop opportunities. Well, so QInsights and BT, I think that's true also as an innovative SaaS. So it's a cloud-based app, software as a service, and we are located in the Netherlands. And our mission is nothing less than to transform qualitative analysis with AI-powered technology. And those who follow me already for a while, you know what my vision is, that we're not going to need coding anymore, or not as much as today, though there might be still always people who code, but that the majority actually is transforming or transitioning to a different way of how we can analyze qualitative data. And I'm going to show a little bit of glimpse of the future here today. And then we also have a strong commitment to ethical and responsible AI use. And yeah, you will, I guess, it's best to show that throughout and what it also means to me, to use AI in a responsible manner. So that's me, but that normally the technical people, they always stay in the background. So this is Wissem, my co-founder, with 12 years experience in software development, or also AI and LLM, and then LLMs, and then we also work with some freelancers. But it's the two of us who brought QInsights to life and going to push further and develop it further. And yeah, as we grow, we can also expand the team. So what can be analyzed? Well, if you're in qualitative research, you kind of know, I mean, there are more data than QInsights currently analyzes, but like interview transcripts, focus group, all kinds of transcripts, open-ended questions from surveys, social media comments, so basically everything that is text. If you have audio or video files, we transcribe them, but currently the analysis is on the text basis. So also when you upload an audio file, you do, or the video as well, the analysis is always going to be on the text. So all kinds of text that you can think of that is relevant, important for the research you want to do, that we can analyze. So in the future, yes, we're looking first into pictures and also into videos, also as AI or LLMs grow, also with that capability. You see also the formats, doc formats, PDF, and also Excel. So for open-ended questions, social media comments, that kind of stuff, you normally would then use an Excel file. So what are the challenges, and also what also drove me was, of course, the interest in technology, and also then seeing how we can change qualitative analysis so we can get away from that time-consuming coding. Of course, coding did have a place in the past on helping us to analyze data, not only so it could be retrieved, but also the whole process of developing coding system. But also that can be done, I think, in also a much more fun way. And then we have 600 pages of text that's easily lead to cognitive overload. And of course, it's labor intensive and it costs lots of hours. It's also expensive if you then calculate the hours. If you're a student, of course, you don't, but you can count your hours maybe in free time that you have saved and do something fun. And a lot of people these days also use ChatGPT. And most people I hear are still on ChatGPT, even though there are tons of other options out there. Just to name the other very common ones, of course, the Gemini, the Google models, and from Anthropic, the Claude models, there's Llama, and there's tons of other options as well. But a lot of people use ChatGPT also for qualitative analysis. And Yeah. So what about data security and privacy? Even though, there's a button, data's not trained on what you upload and so on. But this talk is not on data security and privacy, but I would have some concerns there. We know that AI assistants in the form of these chatbots, they do hallucinate up to 30% and sometimes even more. And there's always a problem with validation of results. Yeah, you get a reference to the document, but not exactly where the reference actually was coming from. And then I hear people that they spend lots of time, all the time they say they spent the time of looking up the reference in the document and finding whether the chatbot hasn't hallucinated. So it's not really the perfect option. But that's why we also built a purpose-built tool for qualitative analysis. Just one word on, or two, on data security, just to give you that image. So what were you doing? Yeah. We also processing data via large language models, and that can currently, if you want to have good quality, can only be in the cloud or basically data centers. So we rent a space in the data center that you access through the cloud via your browser. And that space has even, a double fence. There's even a double encryption around it. So your data are within that very secure space. And we can only do that by partnering with Azure, and that's Azure Microsoft, because they have the industry standard technology that we basically purchase through them by having a space on their data center. Also, by doing that, we can ensure that the data is processed in Europe. We do use a language model right now from OpenAI, but we don't use OpenAI servers or anything. Yeah, so that might also change in the future. Right now, I think for analysis purposes, we need the high-end models, and we decided right now for the OpenAI LLM. That might change in the future. But to give you a little bit of an idea of how you could think about, where's your data actually located. Very quick process of the steps that you do. Yeah, you create a project, you upload your data into that secure space. If you want to, you can add metadata, like normal social demographic variables, years, those kind of things, in order then to later compare and contrast your data based on those. And then there's different analysis options, and while you engage with those, you discover and work with your data. So I'm not going to go through all 5 analysis options today, but that also shows you that you don't need all of them for every analysis. So some are also very specific for certain data types. So we focus on the first 2. Well, and the third one, that's basically if you all new to it, and you will see how I built up a conversation. And if you're not so sure yet how that is done, well, I've trained Q, our AI assistant, to go through the process. I envisioned how we can actually structure a qualitative data analysis, and then Q will help you and walk you through. So that is the third option for you then to try out. The grid analysis is for transcripts. I'm not going to work with transcripts today, talking about the project later. That's where you can get an answer per person, either focus group or interview data, and sentiment analysis we only do with semi-structured data. So that would be another webinar in the future, or if you tried this, of course, you can try that out. So what's the example project all about? Strategies for navigating the dogful journey. I have to pause here a bit, otherwise I cannot hear myself. The dog is barking. You don't hear it via Zoom, but it's disturbing me. So anyway, he's done barking, or she actually. So now you have read the title, and so where did I get the data from? So I took 10 YouTube videos. So once you have seen here, where either PhD students or those who are done and give advice to PhD students, actually give their tips. So I use the transcripts of those YouTube videos, and these are my data set. And some of you are PhD students, I know, so you can maybe directly relate to that. But also when I started looking at the data set, yeah, we all sometimes work way too hard, and maybe some of those, some of the advice we can maybe also take to heart, even if we are not PhD students anymore. So this is the data set, and the research objective is to kind of look at for common pain points, key survival tips, and then to kind of come up with some practical guidance for current or prospective students that will help them to survive their PhD life, so to speak. So it's all kind of a made up study to have a small, sweet kind of data set and an easy one that I can now demonstrate here the process. Some of you have attended a previous webinar where I talked only about this approach, conversational analysis with AI, CA to the power of AI. This is also the article I've been writing about, that explaining the process and a lot more around that. If I've prepared a number of links, but I haven't prepared that link. Louise, if you could maybe drop that in the comment, that would be nice. For those who don't have it's a preprint paper right now. So I simplified the process here a little bit and took out all, the quality validation kind of steps here to keep it sweet and simple. So first step, in order to evaluate what an AI assistant is saying, we need to be somewhat familiar with the data. And that best option is you read them yourself, and second best option, or to remind yourself, it is to look at summaries. And also, but we also will see when we look at the themes that you generate, that it is also a way to get to know your data, but on a deeper level. So the first step is always go read the data, and then with step by step you become more and more familiar. So next step is to come up with a set of questions you can ask about one topic you want to investigate. So we now also if we don't code, we need some kind of structure here, and so it's not kind of you chat and something happens and you go to all kinds of places. We also need some structure here, and maybe also to make it transparent. If you're in academic research, yes, you need to have your methodological steps, and somehow you need to verify, and you also need to explain what you do. And we will see that live, so to speak, like the question I have prepared, and then going through the step of asking those questions and synthesizing. So let's do it more pragmatic. So I'm going back and forth a little bit with the presentation, but now I go and jump to QInsights. So you see I'm in a browser, and I'm logging in now, and it loads all the projects I have. So I have a number of them. So this is the project here where I uploaded all the documents. And to just show you, when you start a project, you add a title, and then you add a project description. So soon this list hopefully will also, not this list, but this little window there will be expandable. But this information is not just a project description that I never put anything when I worked in the past with Max Goudet or Atlas. There was a field to write in a project description, but it was not useful for anything. Here it is useful. It is the context information for your AI system, what your project is all about. Don't take copy and paste like a 10-page paper into it, but maybe half a page. What is the aim of the study? Maybe also what the research questions are. This information is always sent with every query you send. Or also goes into, if you do a theme analysis, it also will consider that context. And you can also change it at all times. So it could also be if you later in the analysis, you want the AI assistant to kind of know something about some theoretical framework or something, then, well, you can also put that information here, so you don't have to put that in the prompt. So that's a very useful space to know, and you can always also just click on here and access it again. So now I have here my document, and so I open a preview and look at the header information. So I put in here that, well, this person is a male speaker or presenter, and from what he says and when he introduces himself, we know that he is an engineering major. In the old days, where we were still coding in those programs, people were still in the habit of, when they did things manually, that they put kind of like this header information on top and then start to code it. It was completely useless, just coding this male or female. So we had to work with variables to do that. Here, it becomes useful again. And because this is a small data set, it's only 10 documents, doing variables and yeah, I don't need to select by variables. If I have like 40 interviews or I have a larger study, as you can see here, I can define variables, I can enter values. Those also make lots of sense if you work with open ends. You might have 400 open ends and you have variables in your Excel files and stuff like that. But with a small study like that, you can add that information on top of the transcript. And because the AI will take it. So now, without having to set filters, I can actually ask for gender differences or difference by subject of study. So think about those things when you prepare documents. So something that was valid 30 years ago and not really the last 30 years, becomes now actually a good tip again. Well, yeah, I could remind myself what's in the documents by just looking at the summary. So this gives me a brief reminder of what this person has talked about. Well, then you would select whatever, the document that should be in the analysis, and you click on the analysis button. I have run a couple of themes analysis already. And so we're going to look at the ones I've already run. And you find all analyses that have been done here in the archive. And you see I've done, let me go to, yeah, run. Maybe I could start to go to that. Yeah. Generative AI is very good in finding themes. So this is once you run theme analysis, this is kind of what you get. You get those little images per theme and a description. But generative AI is generative AI. And the temperature, if you heard about that, we have set it to 0.2. So we allow some creativity in it. If you set it to 0, yeah, you will always get the most probable outcome, which you might maybe not always want just the most probable one, but maybe you want a little bit of variety. But that means if you run a theme analysis again, you might get slightly different results, not completely different, and we will see that in a second. And sometimes only the wording is a bit differently. But that's why I was running the theme analysis 3 times to get an overview. So this theme occurs not in all interviews, or not in interviews, they are transcripts, but in 80%. And so it's in 8 documents, in 2 it doesn't occur. And what I said before, that you can now actually see the reference where the AI got the idea for the theme in the original document. So that reference bit. And you can see within the context of the document where the AI got it from. You cannot compare it really like coding, because sometimes it's really kind of pointing to that bit, and you have to maybe just read a little bit above or below. But it points you to, this is kind of the part of the document where the AI got the information. So you get out of that black box. The themes can all be downloaded with and without references. and so on. So I did that, you see, run 3 and run 2. And I also, let's just quickly look at the male and female. So here I was setting a filter, and we get, let me quickly read that. So we have a little bit in our mind how it differs from males. We have managing motivation, overcoming self-doubt, seeking guidance, building mentorship, building and maintaining community, mental and physical health maintenance, and time management and work balance. So let's look at the males. We also have mental physical health awareness, but then we have self-reliance and independence. There's also the emphasis on community and collaboration, but resilience in handling failures and uncertainties, structured routines and time management, and managing expectations and coping with disappointment. So you do see there is some difference here, and we will also see that throughout the analysis. And it looks very stereotypically, but I also ask about that in the analysis. So the women more emotional and the guys a bit more focused on the practical side of things. So I have to go back to the PowerPoint here from current slide to tell you what I did with the themes. So the different colors here indicate the different runs. And then I grouped the themes that I think are kind of the same thing. Yeah, we have here balancing work and personal life. We have maintaining work-life balance. Here we have managing mental health and well-being. We have mental and physical well-being. So, like I said, sometimes the wording is slightly different. And then this whole middle bit is a whole focus on community relationships. And this one is on, time management, effective practice. So the more practical part, and all of these themes have to do with motivation. And and I've also was reading the description while clustering this. So there you see there is a good, I would always say like an 80% overlap if you run it a few times. And sometimes you also realize that you get, it gives you a theme, but it's really more an outlier theme. But it is worthwhile to look at the themes and then to pick what you want to work with, because that's the idea. Themes are not the end. This is just a start of the analysis, because we just started with the analysis, we read the themes, we don't know yet what's behind it. So we now have to start working with those themes, and those are the ones I picked. And work with the ones in black that you see here. So now go back to that. Let's look at this as a method. And so step number 2 is now we need to prepare for the next step of the analysis. That means preparing some questions to explore the topic that I now have decided that I want to go into more depth. I mean, this basically all topic areas that were identified. So I now have the example here of building effective research practice. And of course, you could ask about, how do they build effective research practice? But then you get a more superficial answer. So the idea is now here to think about how can we explore that into more depth. And so I came up with 4 questions. You could also do 3 or 5. I mean, this is all dependent also on the research project. But what these questions also do, they give you a structure of analysis, and this is also something you can report. These are the topics I've been investigating, and this is how I've been investigating them. And you can also give those questions to a colleague. And also if you work in a team or share the work, or kind of also for some kind of validity check, that you run the same questions again. So if we have it about more academic oriented research, we need to add some structure to the process. So let's go back to QInsights and see how I have run this. So this is effective practice. So the chat is saved. You see, I did it with all 10 documents here. So what advice do speakers give in establishing effective daily or weekly routines? I might get actually a bunch of those. And then again, for each, you could go and check again in context where they talk about it. And then, yeah, this should be a how to speakers describe their approaches. And I don't know if somebody is on my newsletter, but I was looking at Croc 4 that just came out. And I found this annoying. Every time I do a typo, it's going to correct me. It said, oh, in order to make it more precise, I want an AI to understand me, even if I make a typo. It perfectly understood that I meant how do speakers describe. Yeah, but there's also kind of how you see that each LLM is kind of working differently. It was annoying me, and you might also find maybe your favorite ones. Anyway, so I was going through the questions here now, and I'm not going to go through all the detail here, but you see this is question number 3 and question number 4. And what I then also did is there a difference between men and women with regard to what they say about effective research practice. Yeah, and now it's picking up on that header information I put in without me having to set any variables here. And then I get a comparison between male and female speakers. And then I also did a comparison by discipline, which there's one woman in which is classified as natural science. She's in biology, marine biology, and we had the women were in social science and humanities. All the guys were in engineering, computer, and natural science, apart from one woman. So that divide also was very similar to the male-female kind of divide there. And then what you can also do is to get a good summary for you to ask Q to prepare a table for you, so you have a nice side-by-side overview. So I did that for the male-female speakers and also for the subjects of study. And then I also was asking for the top 3 recommendations. So this is one chat about one topic. And then I can it's probably, let me just copy this one again. I want to show you something. So it has already answered that, but and if you ask something again, it might also that it doesn't give you a reference because it realizes it has answered that already. But as we in an archive chat, so if I now hit on run, it's going to take some time. Probably, depends on how many documents you use. So the first time maybe you have to wait, but then it's a perfect time to start reading the answer from what you had before. Yeah, when you go through the question now, it's done. Yeah, so it's not that long, but yeah. So it's always a good time to, if you go through your structured question, to start reading while Q is kind of analyzing your data, and then you can start reading. Of course, we can ask follow-up questions. But just want to show you that you can use those waiting times a bit productive. And by the way, you see all the documents that are here in the analysis. The answer will always be only on those documents. So that is a big difference to a normal chatbot. So there's no hallucination here. We, of course, in workshops, we have been, trying and to really get it to hallucinate. Yeah, if you ask a question where is something remotely in the data, but it also will tell you we could derive that. So it's not gonna kind of say, oh, this is a fact. So it kind of always tries to be nice to answer, but if it's something very different, it tells you that's not in the data. So I'm not gonna save that yet. So now you see what I did here. I did that, and I also numbered it with effective, passive, then mental and physical well-being. And the third one is work-life balance and so on. So I went through all of these topics, And no, I can't remember where I did that. Well, it might be with that chat that I actually did ask it. Yeah, you see, I do the tables. I do the top 3 benefits in this case. Yeah, here I did it actually. Is there a gender bias in your comparison, male or female, or is it really a reflection of the data? Because, or not only in the themes, also with all of the question, it sounded very much stereotypically male, female, what was coming out. So I was then saying, is there a bias in the answer, or is it really in the data? And of course, I could already see it in the data by checking back with the original sources. But these are things that you can do. Just to give you an example, that if you have the hunch that an answer might be biased, you can directly actually point that out and see what the answer comes. And ultimately, you are the ones calling the shots anyway. So let me go to that chat here, where actually I combined 2 topics. And what I started to realize by reading this, a lot of these things are completely intertwined. So it's not only about, motivation. It's also about, you're motivated if you're more motivated, or motivation is high if you take care of yourself, if you sleep good. So the whole issue also with mental health and well-being and all of that is also related to motivation. It's also health and mental well-being is also related to the suggestion of seeking community, building community, do something with your friends, and all that kind. So with all the questions was always everything was always very related as well. So, but in that sense, it's always a good way of getting to know the data by also if there is repetition and overlap in the data. And these questions, when you think about it now, they're not the brainstorming questions yet. It's more like the first step is, well, I cannot jump in the middle of analysis. I first have to get more familiar with my data, even if I've read it, but now I work with it through a particular topic. So it's more retrieval of information. What did they say about this and about that and about that? And then by reading that, then you start noticing things, and then you start thinking, oh, these things always seem to be related. And then you can start more interpreting, seeing, and going more also in the brainstorming type of dialogue, and not only asking questions. So, and the questions are descriptive. It's because we don't code, so I ask it to, what other strategies I mentioned to improve emotions and not emotions, but motivation and so on. Yeah, and then here I was asking a question because I felt the financial aspect was not relevant. So then I'm not sure how good you can actually see that. I can make it a bit bigger. So I was asked, so follow-up question is always okay within those structured question. So this is me now writing something what I observed. Yeah, in the different chats I've been discussing the following topics. So I've mentioned these topics again, and how do you see the relationships between those topics when analyzing the speakers? Is building and maintaining motivation the core category, around with others evolve? So I was asking it, but basically that was kind of starting to get my idea. So it seems to be all evolve, maybe around building and maintaining motivation. That was kind of my first hunch I had. And if you maintain motivation, your mental health will be better. And then other aspects are either a strategy to help, like building effective research practice, building community, seeking, and so on, or a consequence. So I kind of started to see a relationship and then ask kind of, okay, do you see that as well in the data? But then I thought, well, we have also that other topic, which is yeah, let's brainstorm another possible connection. I want to explore the role of self-reliance and practice engagement. Because then I said that might also, yeah, be more the center of things. So I asked about that, and then I've got all the answers here again, also for each and every speaker in each of the videos. And and then I was asking for examples here. Yeah, some follow-up questions again. So now I'm asking for how self-reliance and practice engagement, how and building and maintaining motivation, how these two relate, and it also tells me, yeah, it's very interconnected. And then I wanted to know what the speakers found more important, whether they were talking more about building and maintaining motivation, or whether they were talking more about the aspect of self-reliance and proactive engagement. And then it found that there were 7 speakers talking about the motivational aspect and actually 9 about self-reliance. And and because it's about what these speakers in the videos, what actually do they advise. So that's when I started to work with, okay, let's then work with self-reliance as kind of the main focus or the, if you want to call it a core category. And then I was kind of, let's hypothesize that being self-reliant and taking initiatives is an important prerequisite for doing a PhD. Yeah, do you need to have this? Is that a prerequisite in order to come out at the end with a successful, being successful and submitting your thesis and being done? So now we are, I'm hypothesizing a bit, seeing what answers are coming. And then I knew already that it doesn't have the ability to do the relationships because that's on the roadmap to actually be able to have a graphic where these relationships that we now all have in words are drawn. But what it does, it's then actually giving me an idea how I can visualize. And now we go back to, so we saw that so now you can see actually bigger. So this shows you not just going through those questions, but more, brainstorming ideas are, I have of Q now can look into the data, can retrieve everything that relates to that question. So that's much easier to do. So it's much easier to also verify or falsify or modify an idea, whatever. So these were the questions that we already saw in the app, but to just give you an idea how this can look like. So that was then the suggestion how it can be visualized. And I did that then in a graphic program. But so what it actually was suggesting was self-reliance in the middle with all these 5 around. And I actually then drew all the other arrows as well, based on the text that was coming out before. Yeah, because now I have all the answers in the text, and I also have quotes and in how this all relates to each other. That was all in the dialogues I had before. And so that could then become a potential outcome. Of course, parallel, you need to do the writing that explains all of this. But you saw that kind of a little bit back and forth between if it's now self-reliance that should be in the middle, or should it be building and maintaining motivation? And it came out to be self-reliance and proactive engagement. And then, of course, all of these links can be, explained. And so that is then where some writing needs to occur, where the synthesis needs to occur with what has been in the chat before. And there's also plenty of of quotes now in there that support the various aspects and then relationship between those. Yeah, so this, how something could look like, how you could build it up, and see where also the chat is leading you. And now I wanted to, because I also had in the title, you know, imagine you could do qualitative analysis through a brainstorming with an AI assistant. So this is, and giving another example, which can be also done, it was also an interesting aspect that relates to that study and can be added, but just to show you how you can just simply do brainstorming also in a conversation. Because one person said, I say a PhD will leave a scar in your soul. There was another saying I didn't know, it's like you will lose a kidney. I think that's stronger. So I was playing a la Strauss Corbin grounded theory and what they actually do in open coding, but it's not coding. What is what can we do with the word scar, and what does it mean if you go actually a little bit deeper here? And yeah, so I show you that dialogue. Yeah, a PhD will leave a scar on your soul. So I couldn't remember which document it was. So one person talked about doing a PhD leaves a scar. Who was that? And then of course it quickly finds that. And then I said, oh, well, let's do a bit of open coding a la grounded theory, where we brainstorm about the possible meanings of a word in different contexts. In which context can the word scar be mentioned? So here it was still, because the idea most of the time is that you stay in the context of the data. So it still was looking in the context of the data. And it's like, no, we need to think out of the box. So let's take this outside the document that we're analyzing here on a more general level, where we encounter the word scar and what would be a possible meaning, from like a wound that leaves a scar after an accident or an operation to a scar in the heart of a breakup. So I was also giving some examples. So few short prompting if you want to put those words behind it. So then it came up with all these different contexts. And if you're familiar with grounded theory, then you have these far out comparisons. So it's really good to just, think out of the box and pick something that has nothing to do with doing a PhD, but, leaves a scar somewhere. So as these were lots of ideas, then I picked 4. So I focused on the physical context, emotional, psychological, the metaphor of growth and resilience, and environmental context. So the environmental was the furthest out there. And then I was going through these kind of the typical questions. So what are the causes for a scar in these contexts? What are the consequences? And what are the strategies to deal with? And and then an LLM is very good in giving us ideas here of what are the consequences, strategies, and stuff in these different contexts in relation to that word scar. So then I was writing my thing here about it. A rejection of an article or a bad review from a supervisor could be So I was trying to bring back into the context here of the writing a PhD. So then, based on the ideas it gave, so then I did my ideas here again, and then I was, so I think we can find it back. So that I was, take a look at the other speakers and see where we can find reference to this powerful image. It will leave a scar on your soul. So now after this brainstorming, I was going back to where do we find that also. People didn't say that, but where does it have a reference to what we learned of what leaving a scar in the soul, what could it mean? And so we see also that leaving a scar also can be a reminder of something difficult you went through, but you have overcome it. So it's something about healing and resilience, and of course others are talking about resilience. So just brainstorming about one word, you suddenly open a whole box and see a lot of things that you didn't see before. And then I was asking which concepts can be derived from that. Well, it was kind of still the context, even though I was asking about concept. So I was helping it a little bit and said, okay, what I mean with concept would be the symbolizing the healing process, personal growth, resilience, lasting impact. They were mentioned there, but yeah, I had to teach Q a little bit what I meant when I asked for context, and it was still, yeah, sometimes they just behave like stubborn teenagers, so it was still giving me the context we were working with. So then I was formulating it differently and saying, describe the following concepts that can be derived. And then that worked. And yeah, so then we have brainstorming about SCAR. We got something symbolizing the healing process, which presents recovery and overcoming challenges, whether physical, emotional, or metaphorical. So we do see that also in the PhD journey, person growth, resilience, lasting impact as well. So we can learn a lot from that also, how that relates to the PhD journey. And then I was relating it back to that, and then Q was also doing that. I think I have it also here in my, yeah. So just brainstorming on the word SCAR, then we get, relating it back to the PhD journey. We learn a lot more about the data and can look at the data in a different way. The PhD journey leaves a lasting impact on students, shaping their academic and personal identity, and to describe the profound and enduring effects of that experience. So that's the interpretation, basic of that particular sentence, but we do find it also back in other forms in the other transcripts. And another word, of course, leaving a scar in your soul. Soul would be another wonderful word to try this out with and see where it leads us. And you also before that said others describe it as losing a kidney. Well, you can start thinking, okay, let's play with that idea and see where we get and what we can learn from that. Yeah, and that can perfectly be done with the conversation. The last couple of slides here. This is only for the German viewers here. Yes, if you want to learn a bit more about the basics, well, that is the first workshop where it's about, understanding how LLM works, also about, do everything about privacy and how they're trained. And that's the base workshop. Second workshop is on how to do analysis. I do a day of Max QA AI Assist, which still relies on coding. And then the second day will just be a QInsights day, and you can book both days or one or the other day there. So that is your opportunity, if you're German speaking, to learn more about how to use LLMs more generally or specifically for data analysis. Well, and if you're now curious and want to use QInsights, well, give it and take it for a test drive. Well, you can do that, and you can scan the code there, or I drop the what you ever see now. I put the link in the chat. You click on register. It's free to test, so you get 1 million tokens to test. So we recommend this, 3-4 documents to test. That's the idea of testing, so you get a good feeling for all of the functionality. You don't have to enter a credit card, so you can just enter and test. If you want to use it, these are the prices we offer. If you have, it's kind of the semester license for students for the 6 months of your more extensive project, or want to have it for 12 months anyway. So the first prices are educational discounts, and then if you're a non-profit organization, NGO, and business price, of course, is higher. Or if you like convince your university, buy a license for a computer lab or something, then that is all done in negotiation. We need to know the number of places and usage and that kind of stuff. Or also if you're a team of 3-4 people, then we also have discounts for that.
Step 1, start with themes or summaries. brings things to light. Step 2, shape your path with questions wise, with open minds and goals in sight. Step 3, start the conversation now. Ask and follow where insights allow. Step 4, interpret right, your insights grow. Let patterns speak, let meaning show. Then loop again, go back, refine. Each topic takes its own sweet time. Steps 3 and 4, they work as one, until your insight work is done. Is done. Step 3, start the conversation now. Ask and follow where insights allow. 4, interpret right, your insights grow. Let patterns speak, let meaning show. Then loop again, go back, refine. Each topic takes its own sweet time. Steps 3